Nine o'clock here on your Friday night, February 24th. Thanks for being with us as we recap what happened in the courtroom today in the Alex-Murdaugh double murder trial. The disgraced attorney accused of shooting and killing his wife Maggie and son Paul in June of 2021. Now, after we go over what happened in the courtroom today, we're going to be joined by criminal defense attorney Chris Lusk. He will give us his take on the latest developments in this trial. Prosecutor Creighton Waters continued his cross-examination of Murdaugh today. He began with more questions about Murdaugh's admitted financial crimes before focusing on his changing story about what happened on the night of the murders. Right now, we're going to listen to highlights from today's cross-examination.
Do you remember looking Tony Satterfield in the eye and lying to him?
I remember lying to Tony Satterfield, and I remember looking him in the eye on many occasions.
And lying to him?
Yeah.
Okay. Lying to his family?
I lied to his family. I don't know if I did it in person, but I know I had phone conversations with him where I lied to him.
Forward. Can you describe to the jury what your daily pill intake was like?
I think at that time, most of what I was purchasing was 30 milligram pills. If I took 30, if I had 30 milligram pills, you figure 100 pills would be 3,000 milligrams.
Okay. 100?
100.
So you're taking 60 a day or something like that? I mean,
There were days where I took more than that. There were days I took less than that.
Didn't you testify earlier that you were listening to your law partners on the night of the incident?
Was I listening to them?
Yeah, you testified to that. It's a simple question, sir.
I'm sure I was. When are you talking about?
On June 8th in the early morning hours, you testified to this jury that you were listening to them, but you never told them the Kendall story either, and they heard it for the first time yesterday as well. Isn't that correct?
Yes, that's the first time they heard it.
First time that Ronnie Crosby ever heard that would have been yesterday?
If he was listening, that would have been the first time he heard it.
First time Johnny Parker ever heard that was yesterday?
Yes.
First time Danny Henderson, who was representing you in the boat case, ever heard that was yesterday?
Yes, yesterday is the first time that I have said that openly.
All of this, the last time you supposedly saw your wife and child, all of this detail, you as a lawyer and a prosecutor didn't think that was important to offer on your own?
Oh, I think it's important.
You told this jury how cooperative you've been and how much information you wanted to provide, but you left out the most important parts, didn't you?
I left out that, I sure did.
You don't consider that one of the most important parts?
I think it's important. Your question about did I do these things before I called 911, that's not what I said then, and that's not what I remember now.
Okay. So you're saying now that you went out, you checked, you came back, got your phone, and that's when you called 911?
I'm not saying that now, Mr. Woods. I am saying that now, but to me, that's what I said then. I mean, I told her, I called 911 right away. There was no time to do the things that I'm talking about doing in the time between getting there and calling 911.
So what you're telling this jury is that it's a random vigilante.
That's your
the 12-year-old, the 12-year-old 5'2" people that just happened to know that Paul and Maggie were both at Moselle on June 7th, that knew that they would be at the kennels alone on June the 7th, that knew that you would not be there, but only between the times of 8:49 and 9:02, that they show up without a weapon, assuming that they're going to find weapons and ammunition there, that they commit this crime during that short time window, and then they travel the same exact route that you do around the same time to Alameda. That's what you're trying to tell this jury?
You got a lot of factors in there, Mr. Waters, all of which I do not agree with, but some of which I do.
When was the last time you were here with them? Or talked to them or anything like that?
It was earlier tonight. I don't know the exact time, but
Okay.
I left. I was probably gone an hour and a half from my mom's, and I saw them about 45 minutes before that.
That was Sergeant Green, correct?
Yeah, that was Sergeant Green.
And at that point in time, SLED was not there. No one had gotten GSR from you. Your law partners or Sheriff Hill were not there.
That's correct.
No one had asked you about your relationships. David Owen was not there,
That's correct.
but you still told the same lie. And all those reasons that you just gave this jury about the most important part of your testimony was a lie too. Isn't that true, Mr. Murdaugh?
I disagree with that.
Nothing further.
Again, the prosecution hammering home lie after lie after lie that Alex-Murdaugh has told not only to family and friends, but to law enforcement officers as well. This was all followed up by a redirect from defense attorney Jim Griffin. Here's some of that testimony.
You were asked specifically about $792,000 in Ferris fees that you diverted from the law firm. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
And I think you were asked about an accounting or where that money went, and it went out pretty quickly, roughly.
Yes, sir.
And you recall testimony that over $500,000 went to Curtis Eddie Smith.
I do.
And what would that have been for?
That would have all been for pills.
For opioids?
Yes, sir. Specifically, all I was taking at that time was oxycodone and OxyContin.
And you were an addict, were you not?
I am an addict.
You are an addict. Now, Alec, do you remember being asked about these steps, 283 steps traveled during this period of time?
I do.
And I think you testified your belief was you're just getting ready to leave to go to your mom's house. Is that right?
That's correct. I mean, that would have been the time I was right before I left to go there.
And you were, looks like you had made some phone calls during this period of time, correct?
Yes, the record show.
Alec, did you have Maggie's phone with you at any time between 9:02 and 9:06?
I didn't have Maggie's phone with me any time that night.
Is there entry of her phone showing steps during any time between 9:02 and 9:06? Do you see any on this page from 8:53 to 8:55?
No, sir.
When you got down to the kennels, we're not going to repeat all that, but I mean, did you ever see anybody down there, anybody else?
No, there was nobody. There wasn't anybody down there when I was there.
And did you believe that the information, whether you were there or not there, would advance their investigation in any way?
No, I didn't. I didn't think that.
And why didn't you think that?
Because they were fine and doing good when I left there.
Again, that is some of the redirect today with Alex-Murdaugh with the defense team. Chris Lusk is a criminal defense attorney here in Columbia who's also had the dubious distinction of actually prosecuting cases as well, correct?
That is correct.
Let's dive into some of this testimony we heard today. First, how do you think the state did with cross-examination today?
I thought Creighton came out stronger than yesterday. I thought he did a very good job of establishing that Alec is a liar. I don't really think there's a whole lot of confusion about that fact. I did think he gave too many cross-examination questions that were compound questions. You really want to ask something that's a yes or no answer that you can get a firm answer pretty quickly. I thought there was a bit too many run-on questions.
And how do you think Murdaugh handled himself on the stand today with Creighton Waters?
I thought Murdaugh did well. You know, it's hard to cross-examine a lawyer. Alec has been a solicitor. He's stood in Creighton's shoes before. he probably has a better idea of what a prosecutor is trying to do during a cross-examination than maybe any witness Creighton's ever had to do cross on.
I've seen a lot of social media comments saying Murdaugh basically took the solicitor to school today, the prosecution to school today. That's just some opinions that I've seen on social media. But then I've also seen others saying, like you just said, it was perhaps a better day for the prosecution than yesterday.
I think they both had strong moments. Creighton came out. He did well getting to certain facts. I thought he asked some questions where he got answers that really helped establish the pattern that Alec had lied to everyone. He had taken advantage of people. I also thought there were some questions where he didn't really get the answers he was looking for. And I did think Alec did a strong job on the stand.
A couple of places today, I listened to that testimony. I'm like, well, whoa, wait a minute. Oxycodone, Oxycontin. Murdaugh basically saying that he was taking upwards to 60 pills a day. In one instance, I think he said 70 pills a day, somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 milligrams a day, when the recommended dosage, I think, is 288. If that is the case, how's that man still standing? That seems kind of impossible to a lot of people out there.
I'd agree with that. I fully expect Creighton to get some sort of medical expert to come out in the reply testimony to talk about how much Oxycontin and oxycodone somebody could even take in a day. 60 pills is a pretty incredible number if somebody can actually do that. I'm not sure that you could be alive if you took that many, let alone run a law practice, regardless of how well people think he actually was doing as a lawyer. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure you could function on 60 pills a day, no matter how long you've been an addict.
The other part that caught my attention today was the cell phones, Maggie Murdaugh's cell phone and Alec Murdaugh's cell phone. The defense was basically Murdaugh was trying to say, wait a minute, if I had my phone and I was going from point A to point B, Maggie's phone was not with me because it doesn't show up in the information that you guys have presented. So I think he was trying to make a point that his phone and Maggie's phone were never together. But if that's the case, when the GPS information showed him slowing down in an area where Maggie's phone was found, how does 2 and 2 make 4 here?
It's a good question. There were parts where Creighton got into that cell phone data, and that really helped him today, I think. And there were parts that I didn't think were that strong. One part in particular that stands out, Creighton made a big deal about how Alec took, I believe it was 256 steps from 902, I want to say, to 906. That was right before Alex says that he left to go to his mom's house. I don't really think it'd be that hard to take 250 steps. It could be as simple as he couldn't find his wallet before he left, or he couldn't find his keys. I think it's pretty easy to eat up 250 steps. But I do think the point you made is big. If what Alec is saying is true, I don't think the cell phone data would have necessarily played out how it did.
All right, being both a criminal defense attorney and a person who prosecuted cases, all the lies that Murdaugh has admitted to, he lied to his family, he lied to his friends, he lied to his co-workers, he lied to law enforcement. And then on top of that, the financial crimes that Murdaugh has admitted to committing, he's sitting there on the stand, he's just putting it all out there. Yep, I stole all this money, I told all these lies, but believe me now when I tell you I am not a double murderer. As a as criminal defense attorney, as a prosecutor, how do you think this is playing with the jury right now? Because you've been on both sides.
So as a prosecutor, what you're trying to do there is you're trying to show a pattern of his wrongdoing. You're trying to show that he has lied continuously throughout his life, and he will continue to lie to do whatever it takes to help himself. But as a defense attorney, you look at it, and what I imagine Dick Harpootlian and Jim Griffin are going to do is try to show that just because somebody lies, it does not make them a murderer. It's a big step to go from taking somebody's money or lying to them, and specifically taking somebody's money in a non-violent manner, to then committing a double homicide, double murder.
Basically, the state here is saying if his lips are moving, he's lying, saying he has easily and convincingly just lied his way out of whatever issues that have been thrown his way. to me, doesn't that go to the crux of credibility with someone when you're caught in lie after lie after lie? Then you want a jury to believe you, but I'm telling the truth now.
It definitely does. And you see that throughout with the interviews. Alec lies, I think in all 3 interviews he does. And that's really what I believe that Creighton and the state are trying to get at here. They're trying to show that he's always lied. He then lied to law enforcement to try to cover his tracks. So that's really, I believe, why the state was hammering down the fact that he'd lied so much.
An odd request today, I think, from Dick Harpootlian. I've never heard it before, but Harpootlian says he'd seen it before. He asked the judge today, 4 weeks of testimony here, Judge. When we get to closing arguments next week, would you be okay if one attorney did closing and then another did the back half of the closing? In other words, 2 defense attorneys wanting to do closing arguments in front of this jury. Judge Newman said he's inclined against that, but he didn't say a hard no on that. Have you ever heard of anything like that before?
So I've obviously not been practicing as long as Dick, but I've never seen that. I haven't heard of that actually happening. I think it would be a pretty strange thing to play out, and ultimately I don't think the judge is going to allow both Jim and Dick to do closing arguments here. I think they're going to have to choose one.
And for the record, the prosecution, Creighton Waters, he did object to that, saying no, he would not agree to letting the defense put both the lawyers, Jim Griffin, Dick Harpootlian, in front of the jury for those closing arguments. All right, let's talk about what we have left here. Monday, I believe Harpootlian said they have about 4 witnesses, and then we're going to have some rebuttal witnesses, I believe, from the state. You think we get all the witnesses done and over with on Monday and then move to closing arguments on Tuesday?
I think we get all of the defense's witnesses done on Monday. I don't think we get to the state's rebuttal witnesses on Monday. I think the state is going to ask for some time to get their witnesses together once the defense finishes their testimony. I think Creighton's going to ask for an opportunity to see exactly what the state needs to have in their rebuttal before they go to it. So I think it's more realistic that the defense finishes on Monday. I think the state will get into it on Tuesday and hopefully finish on Tuesday. And then optimistically maybe do some jury charges and closing arguments on Wednesday would be my guess.
On Wednesday. The jury has not been sequestered throughout this trial. They get charged with the case on Wednesday. That would be March 1st. That would be the, actually, we start in January, all of February, and then we'd go to March. Would it be the jury would be sequestered at that point as they do deliberations? Have you heard a jury not being sequestered and then being sent home to come back to deliberate more the next day?
I think ultimately it would be up to Judge Newman. I wouldn't be surprised to see them sequestered once the jury goes and starts deliberating. Once they start deliberating, you really don't want anything possibly tainting that. They don't want to do this trial again. So they want to try to clear it up once they get to deliberation. So I wouldn't be very surprised to see them sequestered at that point.
We've been saying all along, you've got those 12 jurors. We've had a couple alternates come in to take over. 2 or 3 alternates have come in. If one juror or 2 jurors, how many jurors, if they're a holdout, if there's no agreement here, if they're just going at it, obviously they would tell the judge they would be deadlocked. Is that what you're talking about when you don't want to try the case again? Because that would be a mistrial, right?
It would. It'd be a hung jury, which is neither a successful prosecution or an acquittal. It would mean if the state wanted to, they would try this case again. The state doesn't have to try it again, but in something this high profile, I would expect, if it were a hung jury, that the state would try to prosecute again.
I want to get into just a couple more things that Murdaugh was talking about in court today. He said he did not deem himself to be a successful man, in large part because he's had this addiction to drugs for more than 20 years, as he called it. Again, that's something that he's telling the jury, that he's not a successful man, although he's made millions upon millions of dollars. Either he believes that, or he wants the jury to think that he believes he's not a successful man because of all the issues he's got.
So from a defense perspective, it humanizes him. And I don't know if that's what he was trying to do, but it helps make him seem like everyone else that has their own issues, and maybe a jury will overlook, how much money he's made and how prominent the Murdaugh name is in that area, and focus on how, just like everyone else, he's had demons he's had to fight. And I think that is likely what he was trying to do there, is humanize himself.
He was hanging his hat on the motive possibility today. He thinks this is in retaliation for the fatal boating crash from 2019 involving his son, Paul, in which Mallory Beach was killed. He basically in court today said as much. He said, this is what happened. I believe this is all related to what happened with that fatal boat accident. He said he saw his son. It was a gruesome scene. It was a horrible scene. He said the person that did this had to have hate in his heart. So again, trying to tie this to the boating accident of 2019. Is that something we'll probably hear a good bit of when it comes to these closing arguments?
I definitely think we'll hear a lot of that in the closing arguments. What that's doing is it's giving the jury another possible scenario. To have reasonable doubt, having another possible killer is a big thing. And I do think Creighton did a pretty strong job today, rebutting that. He kept calling him, I think it was like a 12-year-old vigilante. I think he mentioned 5'2", a couple other things, and I thought Creighton did a good job combating that, but I definitely think we'll hear that from the defense, because you need to have some sort of reasonable doubt to win this as the defense. And if you have another possible killer, it's a pretty strong avenue to try to get reasonable doubt if somebody else could have done this crime.
As I told Taylor last night, he was sitting in the chair you're sitting in right now, it's like they were implying, they being the defense, implying that Murdaugh was at the scene at about 8:45, but then Murdaugh left, went back to the house, said he went to sleep for a short amount of time, and apparently somebody was waiting in the wings. At least that's the defense stance here, that somebody else committed these crimes as soon as Murdaugh got out of there. Again, that would go back to their basically assertion that this was some sort of revenge act from somebody getting back at the Murdaughs for that boating accident.
I did notice that, and I think that's probably one of Creighton's strongest points from today. He got Alec to testify that the dogs did not sense anyone that they did not know at that time. It could be that someone was there that they do know.
Right.
It could be that it was just, Maggie, Paul, and Alec there. But he did get Alec to testify on the stand that there was the dogs did not sense anyone there that they didn't know.
Right.
I think that was one of the stronger things the state did, was that there wasn't some, random assassin hiding in the woods or something that a dog could have sensed.
And speaking of dogs, that dog kennel video has basically become one of the biggest issues in this double murder trial. Is it the most damning piece of evidence against Murdaugh right now?
It definitely hurts the defense's alibi when in the beginning you hear that Alec wasn't there, he wasn't on the scene, and then as this trial goes on, you get some concrete evidence that he was in fact on the scene. It really hammers home the lying to law enforcement and everything, and it definitely hurts his alibi. You can't really have an alibi if they can prove that you were in fact there. It definitely damages the defense's case on that point.
All right. Chris, thank you so very much for your time. We appreciate your insight on all this.
Thank you.
All right. Again, testimony is going to resume first thing Monday morning at 9:30. Our team will be there. We will have a complete coverage for you right here. Several ways you can view. You can watch on WLTX Plus. You can watch on our YouTube page. You can also watch on WLTX.com. That's going to do it for now. We hope you have a good weekend. We'll see you again Monday night.